Welcome, everyone, to the Game or Die podcast. My name is Ryan Moore, and we're going to be talking about some video games today. But before we do, I want to shout someone out, myself and my wife. My wife has been fantastic on basically encouraging me to start streaming a lot more and kind of do a side gig, a side hustle, if you will, of streaming. I do it normally for my job, but now I can do it with video games, and I've done it on and off over the years, but I've never really tried. And man, my wife has been such an encouragement, and going in streaming for, several hours a day, plus work streaming for several hours a day, it is exhausting, it's tiring, but she has been fantastic. So shout out for my wife. Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyways, all that being said, I have an announcement. I have been streaming for the last several weeks here, pretty much since the beginning of January, straight, hitting the streaming, nerve center of my life for the last several weeks. And I finally hit Twitch affiliate, which allows me to unlock cheers and bits and subscriptions and all that to actually monetize and actually make some money off of streaming. I've been going pretty hardcore by streaming several hours a day, like 6 to 8 hours a day while I'm not working. And even on the days that I am working, like this week, I've been working and streaming in front of a camera and then take a couple hours off to hang out with my wife, do life stuff, have dinner, and then get back on camera and play some video games. So it's been a long road to kind of get that Twitch affiliate status, but I finally made it, and I did a celebration stream on Sunday. That was super fun for about 5.5, 6 hours. I had to work the next day on Monday, and so my voice was just kind of giving out at the end there, and I wanted to do the podcast because I'm trying to do the podcast on Sundays, but it's just wasn't going to work out that way. So unfortunately, I did not get to do it on Sunday, but I'm doing it right now. And there's a ton of stuff that I want to talk about over the course of this podcast. This is episode 77 of the Game or Die podcast. Now, the first thing that I've been playing is Prince of Persia. In fact, I didn't just play it, I beat it, which is one of the several games I've already completed on stream this month so far. At the beginning of the year, January, I've beaten already several games this month on stream, and it's been fantastic. It's been super duper fun. But Prince of Persia was a game that got shown last year, I believe around E3, because E3 didn't happen technically. It hasn't happened for several years, and then they finally just called it. They said, E3 is no more. We are done with E3 as a name brand. And personally, I feel upset about that. I love E3. I think E3 has been mismanaged for the last several years. And having the name and the brand die, I think might probably be a good thing so that they can come back maybe in a couple years and really, go hard with something new, something a little bit more modernized for today's gaming audience. Perhaps, I know that sounds very PR-ish, but I think the way E3 has been presented in the last several years has just been really bad, really, really bad. So I would really like to see E3 kind of rise up from the ashes like a phoenix into something new and creative and much more fun. I think PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo from, 2008 to 2015, I think is kind of when, PAX was really taking prominence. That is what E3 should be more. It should be more of a celebration of games as opposed to a behind closed doors, vendors only event like it was for the years that I went. Near the end there, they started opening up the floodgates so anyone and everyone could go. And it kind of became more of a marketplace. And that's just not what E3 is. It's a showcase of games. But I think they really need to find and understand what that means in modern day, post-pandemic society. I hate saying that. I really do. I think the pandemic wasn't that big of a deal for most people. I think people made it a much bigger deal. Yeah, I know I'm getting controversial right now, but I honestly think that people exploded over a lot of very small little things, and locking down literally the entire world and cutting off, businesses from doing work and stuff like that, I think was just a really, really stupid idea. And man, there was just so many things that could have happened better and smarter, and done in a better way. But all that being said, Prince of Persia got showcased around the summertime. Sorry to go on a rabbit trail there. But during the summertime, that's when the new Prince of Persia got showcased. And I love the Prince of Persia series. I think it is a fantastic series made by Jordan Mechner, and I fell in love with that series with the Sands of Time trilogy. The first one, to be, exact. The Sands of Time trilogy that came out on PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox in 2003 was unbelievable. It was so well crafted, so well done, third-person action adventure game that showcase the prince in a certain light. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later when we get to the actual Lost Crown game. But then they moved on to the sequel, which was a Warrior Within, which kind of took a dark and grittier tone. And, the prince was like wearing eye makeup, all the rage back then, very angsty. And then they kind of lightened and pulled back on the third game, The Two Thrones, because a lot of people were going, dude, this like metal 2000s, music does not fit with the Prince of Persia style. He's way too angsty. He's not as charming as he was in the first game. And even though I didn't care for the characterization of the prince in Warrior Within as much, I still thought it was a phenomenal game. And then The Two Thrones, the game that I actually didn't play when it came out because I moved on to the Xbox 360 at that point. I just didn't play The Two Thrones. But man, oh man, when the pandemic did hit, I actually did play through the entire series again and finished up Warrior Within because I got stuck on it when it first originally released. I got about 3/4 of the way through and then got stuck at a part and just never picked it back up. So during that 2020 year, in the middle of 2020, I picked up Sands of Time and played through it. Then went through Warrior Within and finished it this time, and then finally was able to experience The Two Thrones, the third game in the Sands of Time trilogy, and I just loved it. Later on, at the very end of the year, they announced that they were going to do a Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, the remake of the first game in that trilogy. And everyone was on board, but when they released the trailer for it, it didn't look very good, and a lot of people made fun of it. I personally didn't think it looked great, but it didn't look that bad to where they had to backpedal so much. It was supposed to come out in December of 2020. It is January of 2024. That game has been basically completely stopped development, pushed over into a new developer, and they are starting from scratch, which is ridiculous because, one, I don't think it was that bad, but maybe they just got a bad developer. There are bad developers in this industry. And then I don't think I don't think games need to take this long to come out. I don't know what's happening in this industry to where a remake, like a solid, you're just building the same game, or a remaster maybe is better term for phrase for it. But you are building the same exact game with the same exact character, the same exact storylines, the same exact dialogue, the same exact levels, the same exact enemies, and it's taking 5+ years to come out? Why? Why is that so difficult? Like even the remake of Final Fantasy VII, how long did that take to come out? 6 years? Like why? Why are these remakes where 90% of the work is already done? All the creative work is already done. Why is that so hard to finish and have come out in a decent time period? I don't know. I don't get it. Anyways, when that got announced. I was super excited and I said, I'm just going to wait to, I just replayed this series, but I'm really excited for the remake. And then we just didn't hear anything for a couple years, and they would always give excuses of, oh, we're working on it. Well, it's ready when it's ready. And then they finally said, you know what, the developer that we had working on it, we've moved them to a different project, and now we got someone else working on it. And it was such a bummer. Then they announced the Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, the new one that just came out in January of 2020, January 2024, just a couple weeks ago. And what I did is I was really, really excited about playing that game. I really wanted to play that game, but I didn't know how to buy it because it was a Metroidvania. It was a side-scrolling exploration game, which, most of those games are not really worth a full price $60 game. And I really wanted to play it, but I didn't know how to. And so what I did instead was I opted for the Ubisoft Plus subscription. And with this Ubisoft Plus subscription, I actually was able to get the Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, and I was able to download it as a rental, basically, for 30 full days at $18. So instead of spending $60 to get Prince of Persia and own it, which I don't really need to own most games anymore, I finish a game, I beat it and complete it within, several sittings most of the time. If it's a larger game, obviously it's going to take me a lot longer. But 30 days is much, is almost too much time for me to own or to have a game to say, I'm going to complete this game. I'm going to beat it within a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, depending on my schedule. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I don't need to own every single game that I play. And that's why Game Pass is a great subscription service, because that's what I'm really going for. Also, I want to play a lot of games, and I just can't spend $60 on every single game. They're not really worth it all that much. So all of that being said, basically what I'm doing is I'm renting this game for 30 days at $18. And instead of spending $60, I can get a lot more out of my money, in the long run. So that's what I did. I started playing Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I fell in love with the combat, the animation style, pretty much everything. I've talked about it on this podcast over the last couple of episodes. I really, 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 really enjoy it. And it was so much fun to play that game. I could not believe how fun it was to play that game. However, I do have a few minor grievances with it. Just a couple, but they're kind of not really so much minor. They're kind of major in the grand scheme of the game. One is the fact that you don't play as the prince. You play as Sargon, the bodyguard, or one of the bodyguards of the prince. And that is not who I want to play as in a Prince of Persia game. The prince and even the backdrop of Persia is really a very, very, very minor part of the game. It's almost non-existent. The prince shows up at the very beginning, has 1 or 2 cutscenes throughout the game, and then a cutscene at the end. And that's pretty much it. He is a very, very, very distant, non-existent character in the game itself. Sargon is the main character. Sargon is the one you play as, and it's just kind of not great in that aspect. It doesn't even feel like a Prince of Persia game proper. And again, that's coming from the other games in the series. You don't feel like you're playing as the charming prince, and that's what Sargon is lacking. If Sargon was a much more interesting and fun character to play as, I think I would give it a lot more leeway. But he doesn't have, or he lacks, the charm that Prince of Persia or the prince did in the Sands of Time trilogy. He more basically just felt like a teenager, a whiny, cranky, angsty teenager. And that was a real big bummer for me. I really liked the charming aspect, and I've talked about it before over and over again. When you play the Prince of Persia Sands of Time, or Warrior Within even, or the Two Thrones, you get this familiar characterization of the prince. He's charming, he's nice, he's fun-loving, he makes quips, and not like a bunch, but enough. When you die and you mess up in the game, because he's also the narrator and he's alive as the narrator, he goes, no, 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 wait, that's not it. That's not how it happened. Let me remember it differently. And it's like, that is such a unique and fun way to tell a story. So I love that about this, or about the Prince of Persia Sands of Time trilogy. Sargon, on the other hand, is just kind of like a really one-note character. He doesn't have a lot of character to develop throughout the game. There are a couple times where you interact with other characters and you see him trying to be nice, but most of the time he's just kind of angry. And especially because of the way the story plays out, you fight multiple versions of yourself. And this isn't really a spoiler. This is more of this is the style of the game. There's time mechanics being at play in the game, and you're dealing with past and future, present tense versions of yourself and other characters. And it's kind of a little bit weird, especially the ending too. Instead of trying to go through the story and trying to figure out what's going on and achieve a goal, you just fight with other versions of yourself. Fighting yourself is the stupidest thing one can do, right? You're never going to accomplish anything if you just fight with yourself. The other thing is you're also fighting with all your friends, your other bodyguards that you're grouped up with. Yes, there is one that betrays you, and then he lies about it, saying you betrayed him and the group and the prince and all that. But if everyone just stopped and, actually had a conversation instead of going, oh, he told me you betrayed him and you killed the prince, so I'm going to kill you. Like, why don't you just work it out? Talk about these things, have a conversation about it, show how you are not fighting them because you're not against them. You could have all worked together. And then Sargon literally just starts killing all of his friends and then, goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe I killed everyone. It's like, yeah, it's your fault. You are the one who caused these issues because of his anger, because of his, basic tendencies. He is the one who really causes a lot of the issues in the game. So you are both the antagonist and protagonist of the game. It's a little bit weird in a way. And then the final boss, I just didn't like. Most of the bosses, I'm not a big boss fan. The boss fights themselves were pretty difficult. They were fun to play as for the most part. I did get a glitch in the final boss battle, and it's on stream too, where I basically beat the game, but it glitched out in a way to where it wouldn't let me kill him. And I had to redo the phases several times over and it would just never finish. It was super weird, but I was able to finish the game, get to the ending cutscene, and it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Again, it doesn't make sense. Some of the story beats really don't make sense because you're dealing with time where you go in the middle of the game or near the end of the game, really. You go back in time and save the prince from dying. When you do that, you're going back in time and interrupting things that happen before you start killing off your friends. So therefore, if you've interrupted time, your friend should still be alive because you interrupted the events, right? It's like the Back to the Future timetable where you go down and you deviate the timeline. It just doesn't make sense. There's some weird issues with the plot there themselves, and it's just fine. So the storyline and the plot of the game and the characters of the game, I didn't really care for. The setting of the game, pretty stinking cool for the most part. The animation, the art style, I didn't think was going to work, but it definitely does. It does feel a little bit like a mobile game in some aspects too. But man, it's such a fun and cool game. I really, 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 really dug it for the most part. But this is where I really have an issue with. It's presented in a way that makes it not feel like a Prince of Persia game. If this was a Prince of Persia game, it would have a very different feel and tone to all the characters and the settings and the animation style and pretty much everything. This feels like a game that was not a Prince of Persia game, and either in the middle or near the end of development, Ubisoft butted in and said, this needs to be a Prince of Persia game. Since the Sands of Time remake is going off the rails in production, we need to make this a Prince of Persia game. Change some of the characters, change some of the setting, change some of the animation and the dialogue to make it a Prince of Persia game. All right, we'll see you in 6 months. Go. That's how this game feels, because it is not a true Prince of Persia game. It feels like an anime game more than anything else. And a lot of the boss fights feature these crazy, crazy, crazy over-the-top cutscenes and fight styles that just feel very, very out of place. And I said it while streaming so many times. Prince of Persia has a supernatural feeling to it. It has supernatural stuff happen in it, but it doesn't go crazy anime like this game does. It literally has anime cutscenes and fighting styles where you are, literally Super Saiyan, right? Super Saiyan like Goku up. Like you're charging up powers and all this, and you just don't do that in Prince of Persia. So that stuff, the anime style finishers and everything, I didn't really care for. But other than that, not too bad of a game. Definitely worth $18. Hardcore worth $18 on the Ubisoft Plus subscription model. $60, however, to own it, I would have to have a hard pass on that because, again, I don't replay games all that often. I didn't find the need to 100% it or the characters to be very well done or anything like that. It is a one and done game for me. I will never load that game up ever again. But I had fun with it. And for $18 for a full month to get the deluxe edition with all the cool skins where I got a Warrior Within skin so I could apply that to Sargon to make him look a little bit more like the Prince of Persia that I know and love. And then also to be able to play it 3 days earlier than everyone else who just wanted to spend $60. I could spend $18 and play it early. Dude, they got me with it. And I know Ubisoft was in the news just like last week saying, the future is people don't own games and stuff like that. And I have a big problem with that. Like, we should be owning games. We should just be owning games that we really care about. That's where I buy games, when I care about the thing, when I'm going to be playing it over and over again, or when I'm going to stick with the game much longer than just a 30-day, sale. So that's kind of my final thoughts on Prince of Persia. And I've really loved most of the game. It's just I had some issues with it. All right. So the next episode, or the next topic in the episode, is a game series that I've been going through over the last couple of weeks, which is Donkey Kong Country. I started with Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, and then went to Donkey Kong Country 2, and then Donkey Kong Country 3. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a few streams, about a week, and just kind of waffled between, playing just random games here or there. I played some Toe Jam and Earl, which was super fun. Did a couple reviewer request streams where people would tune in and just request games for me to play. And I would play, 15, 20, 30 minutes of that game, have some fun, but just bounce out afterwards. But I wanted to continue the series because I never finished Donkey Kong Country Returns. So what I did was I finally booted up Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii and just started playing through it. And man, there are some brutal levels in that. And mostly because there's a lot of missable stuff too. So I, in my collectathon mindset, wanted to play and get all this stuff, get all the, the coins and the bonus level stuff and the hearts and just all that crazy stuff I wanted to get. But I quickly found out is just not in my nature to do that because there's so many missable things. If you miss it during the playthrough, you're done. You have to restart the entire level, and those levels are pretty long as well. So instead of like going through a level and just randomly missing something, you have to go all the way back. You have to restart the level, and I just don't want to do that on stream. I don't find that fun. So I've kind of just relegated myself to playing through the game as much as possible, getting the things that I can get, and if I miss it, I miss it. It's not that big of a deal to me. But I do want to finish Donkey Kong Country Returns because it's the only one in the entire series that I haven't finished at this point. I played through Donkey Kong Country 1 when I was a kid when it came out, and I beat it. I played through Donkey Kong Country 2 tons of times when I was a kid, and I beat it. I played part of Donkey Kong Country 3 and never finished it until this week or the last couple of weeks when I finished it on stream. So I finally played through Donkey Kong Country 3. When Donkey Kong Country Returns came out, I was in the middle of owning my store, so I just didn't play that game all the way through. I never finished it. I played part of it, like the first world or so, but I never played anything past that. So I am like deep in that game right now and having a blast. But when Tropical Freeze came out on the Wii U in 2013, maybe 2014, I think it was, I loved that game. I had so much fun with that game, but I didn't finish it. I was at the very last, I had like 2 worlds left, and I just put it down for whatever reason until several years ago. A couple years later, I finally picked it back up and did finish it. So I did finish Tropical Freeze, but it took me a while to finish it. But Donkey Kong Country Returns is the only one that I never did finish. I had a blast with it. Some of these silhouette levels are some of the coolest things in it is the coolest thing in that game, for sure. So there are some bonus levels in the game where the foreground and the characters are all silhouetted against a really beautiful, like creamy orange sky backdrop. Except for some of the characters like Donkey Kong with his, tie, or Diddy Kong with his red hat. Those are actually outlined. So you have some of that color separation and contrasts there. And it is so cool. It is rad. I love it so, so much. I've only had like 3 of those in the game so far. So they are very few and far between. And I'm getting close to finishing it. But man, I love those. And I know they come back in Tropical Freeze. And there's some cool little extras in Tropical Freeze. And as I stream that game, I will point them out because I remember hearing about them when I went to E3. Some of the developers were actually like coaching people as they played. And so they had one of the developers tell me as I was playing it at E3, oh, see this in the background? That's it's Samus's ship. It's an Easter egg. And you'll see Samus's ship in the background of a Donkey Kong Country Returns or Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze level. And it is just so, so cool. I love it. There are some weird little things. Some of the bosses take a little bit too long because of the animations and, the phase transitions and stuff like that. The rocket barrel levels, as cool as they are, they remove a lot of tension when you continue to die. When you keep dying over and over and over again, it relieves a lot of the tension because you know what's going to happen. And I've never liked those where there's these big set piece moments. Things are falling, you're running, you're jumping and stuff like that. Things are collapsing all over you, but then you die and you have to redo it again. So all of that tension, all of that tenseness that you have built up as you're barely making an escape, it's just all gone because you go, oh, okay, fine. Here's where the thing comes. You anticipate everything. You know what's going to happen. I've never liked that. And then the rocket barrel itself, the way it controls, you have to feather the button presses a little bit. And it's really weird. It's got this big gravity pull on it. So you're flying, you're pushing A. And if you hold A too much, you'll just jam right up into the ceiling and die. But if you let go, you have to feather it but push it a little bit harder. It's not a tap. Like if you had to tap it and you would stay level, it would be easy. But what they did is they gave the rocket barrel a little bit of more gravity applied to it. So you get pulled down and you have to push back up. And it's this back and forth that you have to go through. And it is crazy. It is just unbelievably crazy at some point. So I'm having a little difficulty with some of those levels, but ultimately on the whole, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a ton of fun with that series. I can't wait to finish it, go on to Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, play through that. I'm thinking the Switch version because that has the addition of Cranky Kong, who has the pogo stick ability, basically, like Scrooge McDuck in the DuckTales games. And then you have Funky Kong, which, let's be honest, Funky Kong is the coolest Kong of all time. So I'm really, really, really enjoying that. And then I've started playing Ape Escape. Yes, I hate monkeys. I don't know why I like Donkey Kong, but I like Donkey Kong. People could say he's a gorilla. I believe that's the case, right? Is he an ape or a gorilla? I can't remember. But I don't like monkeys. And when Ape Escape originally came out on the original PlayStation, I was young at the time, but I do remember going, I don't want to play this game. Why? Because of monkeys. That was the Square only reason. I remember playing the demo of Ape Escape because Ape Escape is a really unique game. It was the first game on the PlayStation that introduced DualShock controls and really required it. So you had to own a DualShock controller, which most of us didn't own at the time. It was a brand new controller several years into the lifespan of the PlayStation. Think about that for a second. You own a console. You've had it for several years. A game comes out saying you need to buy this new special controller with 2 more analog sticks on it just to play this game. Most people didn't want to do that. I know my parents didn't want to spend the money for it. So it was a little bit crazy, a little bit cool, but ultimately I just didn't like monkeys, so I didn't want to buy it. I did have a DualShock controller because I got the PlayStation a little bit later on in its lifespan. So the console that I got had the DualShock integrated within the bundle of the system. So I had a DualShock. I could play that game without having to buy a new controller. I just didn't want to. I played the demo just because, hey, we all played as many demos as we could because they were free. So when I played the demo, I went, oh, I don't like this. But the controls were unique enough for me to go, oh, that's interesting. But I never played it until this last week. One of the viewers in my streams, Beetle Hero 420, he suggested that I play that game. And I was like, sure, whatever. I'll play it for a few minutes, kind of just to, draw the stream out a little bit more, see if I could get more viewers. And man, I fell in love with that game. It was so much fun. So I started playing that game and really developing a love for not just how unique and interesting it is, but how well they integrated a new control style into it. The DualShock was a really weird and new type of technology that most people didn't really understand how to properly implement the controls. So that's kind of what I did, as I basically said, all right, I'm going to give this a fair shot, the old college try, if you will. And I finally had it click in my brain. I finally had that game make sense to me and go, oh, that's what these control schemes are. That's how you work this game. And I had a blast playing through those first few levels. So much, though, that I just went, dude, I want to play through this whole game. So we just started playing through that game. And I've got a lot of little games here and there that I really want to play. The Gaming Zone, my new mod, has been coaching me on Cuphead. I love Cuphead. It was one of my favorite games of 2017 when it came out. I beat it within about 10 hours. It was hard. There was definitely some bosses that really made me struggle with it, but I did beat it. And then when the Delicious Last Course came out, the DLC 2 years ago in 2021, I played through that thing and devoured it. I loved it, but I never thought I would go back. But my wife kept telling me, hey, you should play Cuphead. You should play Cuphead. And then the Gaben Zone, my new mod for the channel on Twitch, hi, by the way, he was telling me about how he used to mod Cuphead. He was the first modder of Cuphead. And he was like, dude, you should play it. I'll coach you. And I was like, all right, fine. That sounds super fun. So that's what I did. I started playing through Cuphead in a different way. And it made it so much more enjoyable. Instead of just trying to beat the boss, it was learn how the boss works, learn strategies on how to beat the boss efficiently. So I would get close or maybe even die with the boss, and then I would try a new strategy. And it was so much fun. And so we've been doing that over the last several streams, but there's so many games coming out. There's so many games that I'm playing at the moment that I'm putting Cuphead on hold until at least I finish Donkey Kong Country Returns. Maybe we can come back to Cuphead later on this week once I finish Donkey Kong Country Returns. And then also in the evening when I'm not playing Cuphead, I also have another game that was requested for me to play, and I got into it in the same exact way as Cuphead, which was the original Punch-Out! On the NES, yes, not Mr. Dream's Punch-Out!, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Was a game I never owned. I never owned that game, but I played it a ton. I had a cousin who had it. I had an uncle who had it, so I'm very familiar with it. I owned the Super Nintendo Punch-Out!, but I never owned the original NES Punch-Out!. And the reason why is because I just always thought it was too hard, but I've started breaking some of these bad thoughts and habits in my brain as a gamer. Oh, that's too hard. Oh, I can never do it. Oh, I can never beat that game. No, I can. I know I can. I've been playing games my entire life. I'm pretty stinking good at them. It just takes practice. It takes perseverance. It takes time to learn the strategies of the game. And like with Cuphead, with Gaben Zone coaching me on that, it's really kind of started breaking some old bad thoughts and habits in my brain of, oh, I can never beat Punch-Out! Of course I can beat Punch-Out! It's just going to take some time. It's going to take some dedication. It's going to take practice. It's going to take some time. And that's what I'm doing with Cuphead and with Punch-Out! But both of those games are very similar. And so it kind of wears on me, especially being on camera, being on stream, doing it for so many hours per day, that I am trying to figure out a schedule on when to play Cuphead, when to play Punch-Out!, when to play Donkey Kong Country, and do other games that I want to play throughout the year as well, or throughout the stream as well. So it's starting to not wear on me, but it's starting to be apparent that I need to make a schedule. So I'm working on that with work and streaming and regular life and all that stuff. It's something that I look at and I go, I need to sit down and just spend an hour making a schedule out so that I can play Cuphead when I want to, play Punch-Out! When I want to, and actually spend the time so that I can learn the game and beat it efficiently and properly. So that's what's been going on with some of the games that I've been playing a lot lately. Oh man, it's been so much fun. I've been having a blast with it. So the next game that I want to talk about, or the next section or segment of the podcast, is what I'm looking forward to. And what I'm looking forward to is a few extra games. And again, I got to fit all this stuff in. I was really racking my brain over, crap, what am I going to be playing this year? Streaming has kind of figured that out for me. As I've been, going hardcore into Twitch streaming, and anyone who follows the channel, chats in my channel, man, they have been so helpful in helping me figure out what to play, whether it's just for a couple minutes, or an entire stream, or even, getting me started on a series. It's been really enjoyable. But there are a few games without, outside commentary basically in my life. There are definitely games that I want to get to no matter what, just because they appeal to me. And a couple of them are the Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remake that's coming out on Valentine's Day, February 14th. I'm really excited about that because I love Tomb Raider. I've always loved the Tomb Raider series, and I've talked about it before. Tomb Raider was a game that I played on PC, but I got Tomb Raider 2. My friend had the PlayStation version of the first Tomb Raider, but I never beat that. And so I'm really looking forward to going through these remakes, which are hopefully going to have better control, because the original Tomb Raiders, they use tank controls. And that's really hard to go back to. I played a little bit of Tomb Raider 1 for Retrocember last December. If you don't know what Retrocember is, it's basically a blog/video series. I started turning it into a video series this last year, where I celebrate a console generation per month, one console generation per the entire month. So I did 31 separate videos on the 32-bit console generation. So basically the PlayStation, right? I did 31 videos, one per day on a PlayStation game. And one of those days, I think it was like the 5th day of December, was Tomb Raider 1. And so I played through a little bit of the first 3-ish levels of Tomb Raider and did a video on it and kind of gave my thoughts and my history on the Tomb Raider series. I loved that series. And it's gone away over the last several years because they started, producing so many Tomb Raider games, and then the Angel of Darkness on PS2 kind of killed that series for a while. And then they rebooted it back in 2013, which is technically 11 years ago. They rebooted the Tomb Raider series over a decade ago at this point, and they came out with 3 new games in that reboot trilogy. Tomb Raider 2013, so it was just called Tomb Raider. Then Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, I believe is what it was. And then Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which was the third one. I believe that's how it went. 2013, 2015, 2018. So every couple of years we would get a new Tomb Raider. And then since 2018, we haven't gotten a new Tomb Raider, and it's been a while now. So we're getting a remake of the first 3 games in the trilogy, the first original 3 Tomb Raiders, and I'm ready to play those. I'm so excited. I love the Tomb Raider series. So I'm excited about that, but man, that comes out on Valentine's Day. That's 15 days away from today as of recording. So I've got a couple weeks before that game comes out. So what else am I going to play? What else am I looking forward to? Well, another game that's, again, not coming out for a while, for another month, March 5th, is Expeditions, a SnowRunner game, I believe is what the subtitle is, which is kind of dumb. It's a bad name. But man, I love the SnowRunner series or Mud Runner series or Spin Tire series. It feels like every new game in that series, they tack on the previous names or previous game's name to it. So first, I believe it was in 2014, you had Spin Tires, which was very much a tech demo. Get from point A to point B, and you're just driving these old military Russian vehicles through mud and rain and sleet. It was more of a tech demo than anything else. And then a few years later, they came out with Mud Runner. But the subtitle to Mud Runner was a Spin Tires game. And so they added a little bit more, get from point A to point B, but it was mostly hauling logs from point A to point B, maybe sometimes incorporating a point C or D to pick up or drop off more logs in a certain section of a map. But it's basically the same game, just kind of built a little bit more coherent. Then in 2020, they came out with SnowRunner, a Mud Runners game, which was the subtitle. And that exploded the series into full-blown massive maps, tons of DLC that are still coming out 4 years later. And they are just going crazy with how intricate these vehicles are made and the levels and how to get unstuck in a mud pit or a snow pit or whatever. And now we have the 4th game of the series coming out in March, at the beginning of March 5th. Expeditions, where it seems much more story-oriented, and they have a lot more crazy stuff going on, but I'm really, really excited about it. I love that series. I've fallen in love with it. It's like one of my it's probably in my top 10 series of all time, just for how relaxing it is. Yeah, I know. That sounds really weird. A game where you get stuck in the mud and you have to get yourself out sounds relaxing, Ryan? What are you, taking crazy pills? I don't know, man. It's just something that really, really relaxes me. It's a Zen type of game. If you don't take it too seriously, which I don't, I'll play the game normally for several, for the first map, basically. But once I'm done with the first map and I've spent 20 plus hours, getting stuck in the mud and really trying to get myself out and maybe flipping over and have a restart and recall my vehicle and all that, then you can incorporate mods. And there's a mod, manager in the game. And so if the game allows me to do it within the game itself, I'm not going to call it cheating. So I get a good, massive scout vehicle, something that is just basically going to destroy the terrain and just go exploring, unlocking all the stuff, then getting some really powerful, cool trucks to actually do the missions properly, but kind of souping them up so I have the best of the best to be able to do it properly. Plus, it's got Hummers in the game. It's got a cool H2, which I actually have an H2. I drive it every once in a while, but the thing is basically requiring thousands of dollars in parts every couple of years, and it barely functions, but it gets us from point A to point B and allows us to use a trailer, which is nice. I love my H2, even though it is just, it's a mess of a vehicle, but I love it. And so being able to drive a car that I own in real life is actually super valuable to me. It's why when Gran Turismo or any of those games came out, I would always look for the car that I owned, and I never owned a car that were in any of the racing games, which always bummed me out. But this game does have a car that I own, so I love it. It makes me super happy. So I'm really looking forward to Expeditions, but again, that's not for another month plus. So we've got Tomb Raider coming out in 2 weeks. We've got Expeditions coming out in a couple of weeks, or in a month. What else can I play? So I'm really kind of struggling to find out what should I play next. And that leads me into the last segment of the podcast, which is the game of the month. I'm bringing over from Couch Money game of the month to the Game or Die channel. And what game of the month is basically a game that I want to showcase throughout an entire month. Do streams on once per week or something like that, and just showcase a really fun, cool game to kind of talk about with a bunch of people and allow people to play the same game that I am. Now, how that's going to work, I don't know. It really depends, because with the Couch Money community, we basically, all agreed on and voted for a game that we could all play together. However, most people voted on garbage titles, joke titles, or they voted on a game and then just didn't own it or didn't play it, didn't comment on it, and it just became me playing the game every month. And there was games that I've already played before for that month, so I kind of had to sit out. Games that I tried to get people to comment on and they just didn't. So at this point, I'm saying I'm making up game of the year. Game of the month. I'm going to pick a game that I want to play, or a series, hint, hint, and just play it and showcase it. If others want to join in on the conversation and talk about it, that's kind of what it's for, so that I can show people, hey, play this game, get this game. I think you might like it. And January's game of the month was Shadows of Doubt. It's a weird title. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it works. If you never played or don't know what Shadows of Doubt is, it's this voxel-based noir detective whodunit story where you play as a character in a, basically a procedurally generated world, and you get a note slipped under your door saying, hey, go check out this person. You find the person's name in the phone book and where they live. You go to their apartment and you find out after breaking in that they are dead. They've been murdered. So you have to solve the murder. You are an ex-cop or an ex-detective, so you've already kind of got the skill set of how to solve a murder, and it is up to you on how to solve the murder. There are leads that you can follow up and watch, but man, some of those leads don't pan out, and some of those leads, even if they do pan out, can be super screwed up. So without giving too much away, because it is still in early access, it came out in early access on Steam in April of 2023. I don't believe it's going to be finished for the next year or so, probably just the way it feels, but it does feel pretty stinking solid. What happened was I stumbled upon this murder, and then it said, all right, there's a couple different leads that you can take. Which one do you want to follow? Well, in my first playthrough, and this is all tutorial based, in my first playthrough, I said, all right, I want to follow up with going for his work. I found out where he worked. I went to his work. I cracked open into his computer and basically started snooping around his computer to figure out what's going on. Now, after that, basically, I started following up on some of his coworkers and his emails. His emails to his coworkers basically sounded like they were in cahoots with something. So I went to his coworker's apartment and said, hey, do you know this person? They said, yeah, they're into some stuff and I'm not really sure what's going on, but this other person I think was hired as a hitman to kill them. Please take care of them. Please, do whatever you can to make sure you save this person's life. And I go, I've got some bad news for you. They are dead. And they freak out and I say, lock yourself in your apartment. Don't answer your door. I'm going to go try and find this hitman. And so I did, and I finally solved the case. That was the way it went with the first time I did the tutorial at the beginning of the month for the Couch Money stream. Now doing it with my own channel and really, diving deep into the streaming aspect and the affiliate streams and all that, I had a user say, all right, let's start from the beginning. So I started from the beginning, kind of showcased the game, and then at the point where I could pick a lead, we started doing a different lead, following a phone trail. That kind of became really hard, so we switched. Sorry, I'm trying to remember this because there's a lot of complications to it. We switched gears and we actually started doing the work trail in the leads. And so we started doing that. We found the coworker and I went to the coworker to say, hey, do you know this person? Have you seen anything crazy or weird? Tell me about the hitman, because I kind of already played this section. However, when I got to the coworker's apartment, it was locked. So I had to break in and no one was answering the door. So once I broke in, I looked around and I found them dead on the floor. So this game is not just procedurally generated, it also changes aspects as you play depending on when and where and how you do things. So things can be different from one playthrough another, which makes it so much more unique, so much more emergent gameplay. I love it. It's so fun. Oh, man. So that was January's game of the month. Now, with January's game of the month being Shadows of Doubt, I tried to figure out, okay, what is February's going to be? What is coming out in February that I really want to play and showcase? Well, like I said, there's not really that much coming out. And the Tomb Raider games, which would be a great game of the month, aren't coming out until the middle of the month. And February is a short month already. So what I finally decided on was the Like a Dragon series. Yes, that's right, the Yakuza series. I've played Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, which is the remake of Yakuza 1, Yakuza Kiwami 2, which is the remake of Yakuza 2, Yakuza 3, Yakuza 4, Yakuza 5, Yakuza 6, and then went into the Like a Dragon, which is technically Yakuza 7. However, after Yakuza 6, Song of Life, and when they came out with Yakuza 7, which is Like a Dragon, they, changed the name of the series. So instead of the Yakuza series, it's now called Like a Dragon. And then they also changed protagonist. Instead of Kiryu Kazuma as the main protagonist of the story, you are now playing as Ichiban. And Ichiban is a totally separate character. However, he does incorporate into the Kiryu storyline. So this series is just crazy chock full of hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours, over 1,000 hours of gameplay at this point, with all the different titles that have come out in storylines and sub-stories. And oh my gosh, it is just a intricate web that I don't have time to get into fully in depth, and I haven't done so yet. But I played all those games. I started playing Like a Dragon, which is technically Yakuza 7. And then last month in December, Like a Dragon Gaiden, which we all know Gaiden means side story in Japanese. The Man Who Erased His Name came out. I had no idea about this game, but it's basically actually the real Yakuza 7. It is the continuation of Kiryu, the main story protagonist from the series. It's the continuation of his storyline. And I like Kiryu. I dig Kiryu. I think he is one of the greatest antagonists or protagonists of video games, period. And the Yakuza series is one of the best series in video games, period, as well. Now, I played that and I skipped over. I was kind of like starting out in the middle of Like a Dragon, but I skipped Like a Dragon and went into Like a Dragon Gaiden because it was the continuation of Kiryu. I have more stories and affinity for him built up over the years of playing through his games. So I wanted to kind of see where his story was going. Now, that game also ties into the Like a Dragon game from 2020, and I didn't finish that. So I did have some of the story spoiled for me, which is not that big of a deal because there's so much to it and it's so interwoven and convoluted that even if I know part of the story, most of it is still not going to be spoiled for me. So what I decided was, now that I've played through Like a Dragon Gaiden, I can go back to Like a Dragon that came out in 2020 and finish Ichiban's first story. And then just a few days ago, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth came out, which is basically Like a Dragon whatever. It's Like a Dragon 2, basically. I think they really kind of fudged the naming scheme a little bit, and they really shouldn't have, because they should have called... They should have had Ichiban be Like a Dragon series and Like a Dragon Gaiden be Yakuza 7. That would have kind of split the two titles separately, even though they can be interwoven. But now calling Like a Dragon Gaiden Like a Dragon instead of Yakuza 7, it just makes everything much more complicated. I mean, just listen to me talk about this. I'm even confused on some of the naming conventions. So the new one, which continues Ichiban's story, is called Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And that is the continuation of Ichiban's story. So I want to play that, but I have to play Like a Dragon first and finish that. And then I can move on to Infinite Wealth. Or I can play the other Like a Dragon game that came out in 2023 called Like a Dragon Inshin, which is a Japanese-only game for the PS2 that got remade and dubbed. So we finally, us Westerners, finally got Like a Dragon Inshin remade, or Inshin, I believe is Yakuza Inshin, I think is the actual name, on the PS2. Never came out in the US. No one knew about it, but now they remade the Japanese-only version for Western audiences, and now I can play that as well. And that came out. It is a little bit weird because it takes the same character models and voice actors and puts them in an entirely different time period. Feudal Japan, where everyone has samurai outfits and, togas and all that stuff, like the classic samurai outfit garb. Super weird, but it's kind of cool at the same time. So for February of 2024, I'm declaring it Like a Dragon. The entire series is kind of ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with continuing my Like a Dragon 2020 game and start playing through that and see how far I get. If I finish it on stream, I will move on to either Like a Dragon Inshin, which is also on Game Pass, so I can kind of play that, and I already have it downloaded, and I started playing it. I played like an hour of it, got through a couple cutscenes, and then went, man, I really want to play this, and then moved on because Like a Dragon Gaiden came out in December. I can either play that, or I can go into Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the brand new 2024 game that just came out that continues Ichiban's story. So that is my plans for February of 2024, which is the game of the month, which is Like a Dragon, the series. Oh man, that was a lot, but we got through it. So that's kind of the podcast episode for this week. A little bit shorter than it has been over the last couple of weeks, but I've been actually playing games and talking about them more frequently, so I don't have to have this big buildup of games I want to talk about. I want these podcast episodes to be a little less than 2 hours like they have been over the last couple of episodes. I haven't been podcasting as much as I wanted to. I've been putting more effort into streaming, but now I can stream and podcast at the same time, which definitely helps out. So thank you so much for listening and watching my podcast, which is the Game or Die podcast. If you've never heard any of me before, my name is Ryan Moore. I've been playing games since 1988, and I'm not going to stop now. If you would like to check out more of my stuff, you can subscribe to the Twitch channel now because I hit affiliate status this week, which is super rad. You can help me out by doing that, or cheering bits or whatever it is. And that's just going to allow me to be able to do this more and talk about video games more and be more professional and have, just better production quality overall. I think my production quality is pretty fantastic already, most others, but I want to do so much more, and Twitch affiliate status is going to unlock the potential of me being able to do a lot more with this channel. I do a podcast, which is what I'm doing right now, the Game or Die podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts by searching Game or Die. You can find it on Spotify by searching Game or Die. Or you can listen to it on my website, which is gameordie.net. Not only can you find my podcast on gameordie.net, you can also find all my game reviews. I'm doing game reviews for pretty much every game that I beat. I'm also doing articles. I have a game store article that I am working on. That's taking a while, just for the fact that, one, I want to find all the pictures of my game store so that I can put that on there as well. And I can't find them right now. I saw them a couple months ago, so I know I have them. They haven't been lost to time or anything like that. I just got to find them. I have over 50 plus terabytes of data to comb through. So I got to find them first. I am also trying to figure out the format of how I want to write my game store articles, because I think I want to actually have it as an anthology, a story series, kind of telling stories of my game store that I had in 2009 through 2013. Other than that, you can find articles of random other stuff. You can find YouTube videos by searching Game or Die, or going to the Game or Die YouTube channel, which is at Game or Die 007. You can find me online pretty much anywhere and everywhere, streaming on X, streaming on Instagram, and having an Instagram feed, just, all the social stuff that everyone does. But I'm trying to make it more unique than that stuff. So if you are down with me and the things that I do and what I'm talking about, there's multitudes of ways that you can show support for me wanting to do this more. It definitely helps out when you subscribe or do any of that other stuff on Twitch, cheering bits, following even. It doesn't cost you a thing. If you have Prime, Amazon Prime, you get a free subscription. And you can use that free subscription to help me out, which, again, I'm a small guy. I've got like 2 3 followers that really show up, when I do stuff, and that's it. My views are not thousands or even hundreds or even dozens. It is 1 or 2 or 3 viewers per, stream, and I'm doing hours and hours of streaming per day. So I'm not good at self-promotion. I really suck at it. I'm trying to be better about it. So if you like what I do, please let me know, whether it's just, a comment or a subscription or even a follow. All of that stuff means the world to me. But with that all out of the way, I'm going to stop the podcast. I'm going to kind of regroup. I've got to answer a couple emails and text messages and things like that. I was going to do a build stream possibly today, maybe even tonight. Maybe tonight will be the build stream, but I have another 1UP arcade that I can build, and I want to do that on stream, but I just haven't had the time. I've been working, so I haven't had the time to set up a fun stream for that. I've got a couple ideas. So whether that's later tonight or possibly tomorrow, we'll let you know. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single person who watches and likes, or even just kind of, views and tunes out. I hope I made an impact in your life. I hope you found a new game to play or an interesting game to check out. That's the goal of Game or Die, to talk about and have fun with video games. Talk about it with each other and have fun. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next stream. Peace out.